In this video, we'll consider Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, this is the subject matter of several other videos on the course. But in this one, we want to take a more luxurious look at Maslow and the hierarchy of needs model. We want to look at some sort of expansions of the ideas and some implications associated with the ideas in the model. So see it as accompanying the other videos, and make sure you look at those in addition to this one. So let's look at what's entailed in Maslow's hierarchy of needs model. Well, Abraham Maslow introduced his framework of a hierarchy of needs in 1943 during his writing on the theory of human motivation. In fact, there were a couple of publications around this time. Towards the Psychology of Being was also published, and so on. But essentially, what came out of this period was this idea of a hierarchy of needs, and this could be linked to motivation. Maslow's theory implies that human motivation is driven by unsatisfied needs. These needs have to be accomplished before they can grow, move into the other needs, and eventually reach self-actualization. So there are unsatisfied needs which must be achieved, which must be satisfied, and once they're satisfied, then there's another layer of needs, and these must also be satisfied, and so on the process continues until the individual is satisfied, what Maslow called self-actualized. Maslow's framework is widely used amongst leaders and executive managers who look for different techniques for employee motivation. When we need to understand motivation, this is a very straightforward undertaking. We simply look at the basic needs that, say, workers have, and then there's a hierarchy above that. There are more sophisticated needs that sit one on top of the other until the worker has achieved what he or she really considers to be their desirable state. So in the meantime, the workers will be motivated to try to achieve the next level up. And in a sense, that's the essence of the model. So if we look at it in terms of the traditional presentation, which is essentially a pyramid or a triangle with one need sitting on top of the other, we'd start at the bottom with the physiological needs. And we'll talk about these in much more detail later on. But physiological needs essentially means that the well-being of the person is in place, that the person has water and sleep and food and rest and so on. And these are physiological requirements that we have as individuals, as a species. This is what we need to function. On top of this, we have safety needs. We don't want to run the risk of harm or be hurt within the environment. We don't also want to have insecurity in our lives if we can avoid it. So we try to satisfy our safety needs. And we also have a need to mix and to socialize. We are social creatures, so we have a need to fulfill this desire to meet others and to communicate with others, and it's a social requirement. We also like to, in a sense, demonstrate our capacity to perform certain functions and to have certain personality traits, and this is linked to our esteem needs. We have esteem needs which suggest that we want to have status within groups. We want to be recognized as important individuals or interesting individuals. And right at the top we have this idea of self-actualization. So we have this scale running from physiological right through to self-actualization. And this is the classic way in which we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There are 5 particular categories here. You can count them going up from physiological to self-actualized. Um, you will see other presentations of Maslow's hierarchy of needs having, say, 7 particular divisions, or some might even present it with less. But essentially, the logic of having basic needs, having a layer of needs above it, and above that again, until finally we get to the stage where we are happy and contented and satisfied. And at which point, in a sense, we are not motivated. We are content with our lot in life. So let's look at it in a little more detail. Well, the types of needs. For a start, let's talk about the physiological needs. These are categorized by Maslow and as the basic needs necessary for survival. These needs include water, air, food, sleep. And in terms of the organization, this could be wages, it could be remuneration. Because people may enjoy the status of their work, may enjoy the social contact at work, but if they're not being paid, they will not be there. So it's in a sense the basic need. They have commitments, family commitments and personal commitments that must be paid for every month or every week or whatever. And to pay for these particular purchases or expenditures, they need a wage or a salary. So that's the most basic requirement within the organization, and that's tantamount to our physiological need in the wider setting. So it's a very basic requirement. Then we have safety needs. These needs are important for an individual as they provide security for an individual's environment. They include job security, a safe environment to work, free from harm, shelter from the environment, and health insurance. And by health insurance I mean that the situation in which the worker finds him or herself is safe, and the management of the organization have undertaken some scrutiny of the activities of the individual and the environment within which the individual is working, and try to make them safe. So safety needs can be job security, because we like to be able to think we're able to plan our lives and pay our bills and so on. Job security is important, that's a safety need. But also the physical safety, going to work. We don't expect to be injured while at work. So we expect the management to undertake a full review of safety issues at work and issues surrounding safety from machines and moving around the place of work and fire and risk and so on. So we have safety requirements, and these are very important. If they're not in place, then we're not interested so much in that particular work. If we find going to work hazardous, we'll be less inclined to work there. If the job is insecure, we may start looking for alternative employment. We're not committed to the organization. So we can see in terms of organizations and motivation here, the safety needs fitting on top of the physiological needs. The physiological needs in terms of organizational motivation is the need for wages. The safety need in terms of organizational motivation is job security and safety in employment. There are also social needs. As humans, we want to belong. We have this need for, as Maslow called it, love and affection. This need is less basic than physiological and safety needs. In an organizational context, it may include working in teams. It may involve simply contact with other employees. It may be the opportunity to sit with colleagues during break times from work and talk to them about their lives and about their interests, and it's social contact. So it's not as basic as the safety needs. These are extremely important, as indeed is the physiological needs. And in terms of organization, as I said, we can interpret physiological as wages and salaries, So that's very basic. Safety in terms of job security and a safe working environment. And now social needs, which is the ability to mix with colleagues at work and to socialize with them. So it's a need we have as individuals. If we're working in solitary conditions, it's not as pleasant. There are also esteem needs. This need develops after the previous three needs have been accomplished. So it sits on top of the previous three: the physiological, the safety, and the social. This includes self-respect, personal worth, social recognition and accomplishment. In an organizational environment, this may include factors such as recognition by managers. In other words, the person's contribution to work, the person's contribution within the organization is recognized. It's esteem. They are congratulated for good quality work, for efficient work, for their contribution to the organization. And the workers, in terms of organizations, would welcome this type of recognition. This is an esteem need. And then we've got self-actualization. This is perceived to be the highest level of need in Maslow's perspective. This growth includes personal growth and fulfillment or fulfilling potential. It's the fulfillment of all of the requirements of the individual. The individual is satisfied. Once the individual gets to the self-actualized part of the pyramid, they are complete. They've achieved everything they want to achieve. They're happy. They've achieved what they've set out to do. Now, what I want to do is go through these in more detail and just look at some possible spin-offs from them. So this particular video is, if you like, an amplification of other videos on this topic. So let's talk a little more about this idea of self-actualizing and look at the characteristics of the self-actualizing component. Well, for a start, within this there's a keen sense of reality. In other words, the person is acutely aware that he or she has achieved what they have managed to get and do. They understand their achievement and they are content with that. So they have a keen sense of reality. They know what they've achieved and they're happy with that, and they have no desire to go further. They have the ability to solve problems. They have a lot of self-confidence because they have gone through various processes on the way. They've experienced the other stages within the pyramid, within the hierarchy of needs. So they have confidence that they can solve problems and resolve issues. They have inner strength, if you like. They have, by introspection, they know what they're capable of doing and they're confident about their position. So they're self-confident. They're also self-reliant. They're independent individuals. They're able to look after themselves. They're aware of the possible threats in the environment. They're aware of what's going on around them. They're self-reliant. They're independent. They're able to deal with situations. They're confident. They're also democratic, fair, and non-discriminating. They like the idea of listening to others and perhaps passing on their experiences and suggestions. Maybe that's a part of the socialization need they still have, and they still want to mix with others and enjoy their status within that club or within that team or within that community. So they want to come across as democratic and listening to others, and they want to be seen as fair and non-discriminating. Generally speaking, they prefer a few intimate friends. They prefer a few friends that are truly their friends, are real friends. They don't like to mix with a lot on a superficial level. They prefer to have a few friends, and these few friends are quite deep friends. They know them very well. They're capable of laughing at themselves and joking about themselves. They're so confident about their position and their abilities that they're not adverse to joking about their own position. They're able to criticize themselves, and they know that they can recover from this, and they know they're able to uh, strengthen their position and fortify their position in this self-actualized category. So they're able to mock themselves because they know they're not being threatened. They're not afraid to be true to themselves. They know exactly where they've got to. They know what they've done in terms of their achievements, working their way up the pyramid, working up through the various levels of the hierarchy of needs. They know what they've done. They are aware of their weaknesses if they have any, and everybody has weaknesses, but they're aware of them and they're able to deal with these. So they have confidence, and back to number 3 again, they have a lot of self-confidence, so they're not afraid to own up to their weaknesses and deal with those. Generally speaking, they like to live an exciting and interesting lifestyle. They've achieved a lot, so they reward themselves by having an interesting lifestyle. They don't have to worry about having a job or meeting the requirements of the job. They know they're able to do this confidently. So they're able to take their free time and develop interesting lifestyles and be a little more exciting and a bit more rewarding towards themselves, because their achievements enable them to do this. They are innovative. They will look at new opportunities, and they'll look at new processes and new ways of working, and they will be innovative. Maybe this is related to number 9, the exciting and interesting lifestyle. So they perhaps have the self-confidence to try out new things because they know they're able to work within their existing requirements and they're able to perform well within the organization. They're not threatened in any way, so they can, to some extent, experiment and try out new ideas. Their personality has been developed through the self-confidence they've got from their position, from their experiences and what they've achieved and what they've done, and this enables them to influence others. Others will look up to them and respect them, and they're able to make an impression on others. So the self-actualizing characteristics means a very confident individual who has achieved a lot and has worked his or her way up through the various needs, understands the various needs, and has enabled him or her to, if you like, tick the box. They have achieved those various needs on the way up to the self-actualized position. So it's not like other needs. McLagan in 2003 suggests that self-actualization can only be acknowledged once the individual has understood their personal moral ideals. The individual decides their self-actualizing opportunities. So self-actualization is not an absolute category. It is determined by the individual. So some people may be self-actualized at a different level to others. Some people may be content and happy at different levels of achievement. So not everybody goes to the same level. Some people will have ambitions to just carry on and achieve more and more. Other people will sit back and be happy with their position and what they've achieved. So it's not an absolute standard. It's one that's determined by the individuals. Management tried to provide different experiences for employees to reach self-actualization. However, it has limited effect on an employee motivation level. So, in a sense, once the individual has achieved the basic needs, the physiological ones, if you like, once they've got a salary that they're happy with and they can live on, they will desire more salary because they'll want more purchasing power outside. But once the safety needs are in place and once they have a social framework at work, they may be quite happy with that and will be content to work under those conditions. Others may require esteem and recognition and promotion. That is what drives them. And yet again, there will be others who will get to the stage where they want all of those different levels, and they want a sense of confidence that they have achieved this. But it will vary from individual to individual. Some will be happy to have achieved perhaps the basic needs, having a reasonable salary, having security of employment, and have some social framework at work, and perhaps be quite happy with that. Others will want to go on for recognition and more status and so on. Properties of the framework. Well, once a need has been satisfied, it no longer remains a motivator. So once a need is achieved, then that's not what's motivating the individual. They move to the next level. So once physiological needs are met, then they will move to safety needs to try and secure their position. So that becomes the motivator. But right at the very start, the motivation is to perhaps get a job with a good salary. That's the motivator. That's what brings the individual into action. But having achieved the salary, then they will want perhaps to secure it. They may always refer back to salary and want more. So there is a loop back to try and improve it. But they may want to improve that further up the hierarchy. For example, with esteem needs. Esteem needs mean they've been recognized for their contribution, and that may feed back to more salary. So there's more recognition of their contribution. So physiological needs, the basic needs of, let's say, having a good salary, that's the first motivator, that's the first level. The next one, securing it. And they have moved to that being a motivator. And once that's been achieved, once they're confident that they've got the job and the job is secure and even the conditions in which they're working is secure, then they will move to the social needs. See what sort of people are there, and are there friendship possibilities within the workforce. So they move to the next level, and that could be the motivator. Eventually they enjoy working there because of the contact they have with their colleagues, and so on. Each need in the hierarchy has to be satisfied to allow the next need to be an effective motivator. So once a need is satisfied, then the next one comes into play. That becomes the next motivator. So the individual moves up to the next need. If a lower level need has not accomplished its level of satisfaction, it may then become a motivator. So, in a sense, if the person is unhappy with his or her remuneration, let's say, then that remains the motivator. They don't move to the next level. They want that one resolved first, and they want to find ways to resolve it. It may mean moving job, or it may mean taking on extra responsibility, or taking on extra courses and improving competencies and application and so on. But whatever it is, that will remain the motivator. When it's achieved, then that person will move to the next level up. Individuals subconsciously have the desire to work their way up the hierarchy. So it's not done in a planned sense. This tends to be something which almost happens automatically. They start to rise up the hierarchy. Um, Once salaries and wages are acceptable, then they move to the next level. It's almost automatic. The next one up is to try and secure this, to make sure that this job is going to remain in place so that they can plan out their personal lives more effectively. They have more confidence about being able to pay their personal bills and being able to pay living expenses. And once that's been done, they move towards the social one. And once that's been done, they move on again. So it's almost done subconsciously. There's no real thinking about this. It happens almost in an automatic way. But self-actualization is a different type of need. Self-actualization is at the top, and that's when the individual has a lot of self-confidence, as I said earlier, has a lot of understanding of the various tasks that were required to get there. They have confidence in themselves and in their abilities. They're not trying anymore because they're satisfied. They're happy with their position in life. They are self-actualized. That's at the very top of the pyramid. Now, assessment of the model within an organization. Well, motivation does not necessarily occur within the organization. Self-actualization can trigger off outside of the work environment. So, self-actualization can be referenced against the norms of the society. If the norms of the society are for people to be happy with perhaps less material goods, for whatever reason, the people in this community are just simply happy to look at the quality of life rather than the quantity of life, then the reference point is outside of the organization. So motivation does not necessarily occur within the organization. Self-actualization can be triggered off outside. It could be that the society in which the organization is located is highly competitive, highly materialistic, and there's a lot of emphasis on status, in which case self-actualization may be a major issue. Individuals are motivated by different things and during different stages of their lives. We all move through different stages. There's the, if you like, the young stage, perhaps just after college or just starting out in our career. Then later on, more obligations within a family context, and then later on again, children and more family obligations and more security requirements within life to make sure that the family can be looked after, and so on. We have different stages in our lifestyles, in our personal lives, and these interact with this hierarchy of needs within the workplace. The theory lacks sufficient explanation of different individual behaviors. It doesn't really tell us about individual behaviors. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a good structure to understand how we move from one set of motivators to the next, but it doesn't really tell us anything about the mechanisms, how we try to move from one to the next. It doesn't give us the bridges between one set and the next. It doesn't tell us what activities the individual must take in order to jump from one level up to the next. So it merely states that these are a set of motivators and these are the next set of motivators. And it's for the individual to look at his or her personal circumstances, to look at the organization within which they're engaged, and then try to work out what's the best strategy to achieve the next set of requirements, the next set of motivators. Organizational activities can result in more than one need being satisfied. Um, it could be that the organization not just provides a salary which is acceptable, meeting the, if you like, the physiological needs, the equivalent of the physiological needs that we talked about earlier, but it also perhaps offers some sort of security or contract so that two levels could be achieved simultaneously. So by working for the organization, the employee has, in a sense, ticked two boxes straight away and will then move towards satisfying the social needs. Individuals may attach different values to each need. It may be the case that the individuals will look at, for example, security as very important. So they're prepared to accept less remuneration, but in compensation they must have more security. It may also be the case that some individuals will want to value the social context and perhaps are not so interested in promotion over and above that. They're not so interested in the esteem needs as passed on by the organisation in terms of quality of work. They may be more interested in the esteem needs in the context of their social mixing with the other members of the organisation. So different levels within the hierarchy of needs may be appraised differently by individuals and have different status assigned to each level by the individuals. Some individuals may value one and not so much value the other, for example. So they're not all equally important. It does vary from individual to individual. Now let's look at Maslow's theory from a management perspective. First of all, the physiological needs. Well, wages must satisfy employees' basic need to survive. And employees must also have sufficient breaks. In other words, the work can not be continuous. The work it should recognize that they're humans and then will need a break. They need an opportunity to relax and regain their composure and regain their strength. So the physiological needs of work must be recognized by management. The effort that the employees are expending within the workplace must be recognized, and wages must compensate them. They must enable them to survive, to live, to pay for accommodation and food and shelter and clothing and so on. But it must also enable them to function in terms of their own physiological requirements. They must have breaks from the work. They must have an opportunity to have a drink and to rest and to regain their strength, as I said. Safety needs. Well, employees are working in a safe environment. They need to work in a safe environment. They need to have job security and perhaps some additional benefits, perhaps healthcare benefits or insurance, or knowledge that if they're ill or away from the workplace they will still receive some remuneration. So they need to have some sort of safety factored in, and management, if they supply this, will be seen as more cooperative with the workers. There will be more loyalty on the part of the workers, and one of the needs within the hierarchy will be checked. It'll be completed. So these are the first two that management need to recognize. But the management should then move on to looking at providing a friendly environment and a sense of belonging, a sense of trust in the individual, and a sense of belonging that the individual is valued and respected for his or her contribution to the organization. Esteem needs can also be mentioned here, because employees feel valued perhaps by recognizing their achievements. They feel valued by the organization. The organization recognize what the employees have done, what their achievements are, and they have congratulated them and thanked them and perhaps given them some reward, a bonus perhaps. And they feel that they have some esteem within the organization. And self-actualization, well, provide employees the opportunity to reach their full potential. Keep employees motivated by providing them with appropriate challenges to accompany their needs. So the organization is recognizing that some individuals will have will want a more challenging existence. They will want to problem solve. They want to show their individual talents. They want to achieve. They want to be recognized for what they've done. They have this desire to constantly, in a sense, evolve within the job. And management should really be able to accommodate this by allowing the workers who have the skills and the abilities to do this to rise up and perhaps become managers or line managers or departmental managers, whatever. But they're able to rise up through the organization and gain the confidence to complete the tasks that are expected of them and be recognized for having those abilities. In this case, they become self-actualized. Now, concerns with the Maslow hierarchy. Well, some needs have an adverse effect. For example, the need to socialize may result in different behaviors from different individuals. It could be the need to socialize jeopardizes productivity, or it could be the need to socialize perhaps may lead to conflicts and disagreements within the workplace, which could be adverse. So the fact that there is the opportunity to socialize is perhaps desirable, but there are risks associated with it also. And individual behavior tends to react to more than one need. Sometimes the workers will want better salaries, better wages, but they will also want security, and that'll come as a package. The two will come as one requirement. They will want more remuneration and their jobs safeguarded. And we often see within the trade union system, for example, the trade unions making claims on organisations for more remuneration for their members and job security. So the two elements are combined. So sometimes behaviour tends to react to more than one need. And there's also the problem of how do individuals know when a need has been satisfied? Well, in the context of, let's say, security, job security, it could be that the management issue a contract and say that their jobs are guaranteed for the next year. That may indicate to them that they have achieved their security, so they may move on to the next level. In the absence of that, it's difficult for them to know if they have got job security. They may be working day to day, they may be working week to week. They're not sure if they're going to have a job in a month's time or in a week's time. It's difficult for them to know how secure their jobs are. And likewise with this, the social need. How does the individual measure this? It's presumably done by introspection, by thinking that the place they work is an enjoyable place. It's one that's nice to go and work there because they've got friends there. But only the individuals can gauge that. And then it's also the case that friends within the workplace may leave to go to work elsewhere because they've been offered perhaps more salary or more wages elsewhere. So that social framework has been partially destroyed. Does that mean then that the person who has engaged in work because they have completed the first two stages of Maslow and moved on to the social stage, will now have to regress and go back to the second stage, which is the security stage, because in a sense they can't go on because there is no social stage. Their friends have left. So individuals have to try and work out whereabouts they are within the hierarchy of needs. The model does not address the behaviour of a wide range of individuals. For example, working for low pay for the sake of future benefits. There's a wide range of behaviour that we may encounter within work. Sometimes people will work for very little because they enjoy the ambience of the workplace, they like the environment in which they work. So they're satisfied, not self-satisfied, but they're not self-actualized, I should say. They're contained within that one level, but in a sense they're quite happy within that one level. So they're working for perhaps very little remuneration, but they take out their enjoyment of the experience of working there, and that's what they appreciate. So they're not moving up this hierarchy of needs, not necessarily, at least. Anything perhaps above it that they can easily achieve is a bonus. There's little evidence to support the model. Maslow undertook his research amongst the middle class communities in the UK and the USA, but there hasn't really been tested. It's not really an empirical model, one that is subjected to testing, and in a sense some of the other motivational models have eaten into its territory. They have offered alternative explanations, and some of those other models have become highly respected within this area. Maslow's theory has been greatly acknowledged amongst many managers in finding ways to motivate their employees. Having said that, it's a very simple, straightforward model. We can see it in terms of our 5 steps, and movement to the next level means the completion of the previous level, and so on. So it's a very straightforward model to understand, and clearly the issues addressed can be recognized within the working environment. Clearly the workers will need adequate remuneration and compensation for going to work so that they can pay their household bills and so on. Clearly that's a most basic need, and that's the equivalent to the physiological need that we can see in other contexts. But it's not really an empirical model, as I said earlier. It's one, however, managers can recognize, and it's an easy one to carry around with us, an easy one to understand. However, there have been studies carried out which do not support the model. Some suggest that there are all sorts of issues, some of which we've talked about in this video. For example, not all the stages are equally weighted. Not all the stages are important. Not all the phases in the model, the 5 phases, are equally important. And it could also be that there's retrogression. People move to one level and then move back, and have to move back because insecurity issues further back may cause an issue, or remuneration may fall over a longer period, and so on, and they'll find that they are constantly moving up a step and down a step and so on. So it can be somewhat more sophisticated and more complicated as a consequence. There is a lack of scientific support, but this is the first theory that people are exposed to. It's one that we come across immediately when we consider motivation in the business area, business and management area. It's a fundamental model. It is a neat model. It does offer us some insight into motivation. It's just that we have to treat it somewhat more sophisticatedly. We have to realize, as I said earlier, not all the stages in the hierarchy are equal. There is movement upwards and downwards. It's difficult to test the model empirically. It's difficult to perform scientific tests on the model. And different stages have to be recognized by individuals as being complete before they move on, and not all individuals can recognize when stages are complete. So it is much more complicated than it looks, but at the same time it does offer us a very good opening introduction to motivation within organizations. So that's all we'll talk about in this session, so let's leave it at that and say thank you for watching.